The hospital room smelled of antiseptic and fading hope, but James Carver's eyes still sparkled with defiance. At 62, the billionaire tech mogul lay frail, his body betraying the vibrant spirit that had built an empire. Beside him, his husband, Ethan, gripped his hand, their love a quiet rebellion against the sterile silence. James had always lived unapologetically. In a world that once tried to dim his light for loving a man, he'd carved his own path, amassing wealth, influence, and a legacy of breaking barriers. But now, with cancer tightening its grip, he faced his final act, not for himself, but for 4 little girls who'd never known a home. The quadruplets, Lily, Rose, Violet, and Ivy, were 6 years old, abandoned by a system that couldn't handle their boundless energy and fierce loyalty to one another. James had seen their faces in a foster care file, their wide eyes staring back with a mix of fear and resilience. Something in him stirred. He'd never had children, never thought he could, but in that moment, he knew these girls were his purpose. "Ethan," he whispered, his voice weak but resolute, "we're going to adopt them. All 4. Ethan's breath caught. They'd been together 25 years, married for 10, and had faced every storm side by side. Homophobic slurs in the 90s, corporate battles, and now this. But adopting 4 children, with James' health failing, it was madness. Yet, when he looked into James' eyes, he saw the same fire that had made him fall in love, a fire that refused to be extinguished. "James, you're dying," Ethan said, his voice cracking. "How do we do this?" "We do it together," James replied, squeezing Ethan's hand. "We give them a family. We show the world what love can do." The adoption process was a battle. Social workers questioned their age, their health, their lifestyle. James, even from his hospital bed, fought with the ferocity of a man with everything to lose. He leveraged his wealth, his connections, and his sheer will to cut through red tape. By spring, the girls were theirs legally and irrevocably. The first time the quadruplets stepped into the Carver mansion in upstate New York, their tiny sneakers squeaked on the marble floors. Lily, the boldest, clutched a worn stuffed bear and eyed the chandelier suspiciously. Rose, the dreamer, spun in circles, giggling at the vastness of the foyer. Violet, the quiet one, clung to Ivy, the protector, who scanned the room like a general assessing a battlefield. "They're terrified," Ethan whispered, watching from the doorway. "They're home," James corrected, his wheelchair humming as he rolled forward. "Hey, girls," he called softly, "want to see your rooms?" The girls hesitated, then followed, their small hands linking together like a chain. Upstairs, James had transformed 4 guest suites into a wonderland, each room tailored to a girl's personality, based on the sparse notes in their files. Lily's had a climbing wall, Rose's a mural of stars, Violet's a cozy reading nook, and Ivy's a desk with art supplies. The girls' eyes widened, and for the first time they smiled. That night, Ethan tucked them in, his heart swelling as Ivy whispered, "Are you our dads now?" "Yes," Ethan said, his voice thick. "Forever." But forever was a promise James couldn't keep. His health deteriorated rapidly. By summer, he was bedridden, his once commanding presence reduced to shallow breaths. Yet, he spent every moment he could with the girls, teaching them chess, telling stories of his tech startup days, and whispering to Ethan about their future. "Promise me," James said one night, his voice barely audible, "you'll raise them to be fearless, like we were." Ethan nodded, tears streaming down his face. "I promise." James passed in August, under a sky streaked with pink and gold. The girls, too young to fully grasp death, clung to Ethan as the funeral drew crowds, tech moguls, activists, and strangers whose lives James had touched. The media buzzed, some outlets sneering at the gay millionaire's last stunt, while others called it a triumph of love. Ethan was adrift, grief threatening to swallow him whole. But the girls needed him, and James' promise anchored him. He threw himself into fatherhood, navigating tantrums, school plays, and the girls' endless questions about Papa James. He thought the worst was behind them. Then came the letter. It arrived on a crisp October morning, addressed to Ethan in James' handwriting. Inside was a legal document and a note. Ethan, my love, I've left the girls something special. It's in the safe. Code 0410, our anniversary. Let them decide what to do with it. Ethan's hands trembled as he opened the safe. Inside was a will, separate from the one James had shared with him. It bequeathed $100 million to the Quadruplets, to be accessed when they turned 18, with one condition. They had to use it to change the world. Ethan stared at the document, his mind reeling. The girls were 6. How could they possibly understand this? And why hadn't James told him? As he sat with the girls that evening, reading them a bedtime story, Lily piped up, Papa Ethan, what was Papa James' biggest dream? Ethan paused, the weight of the will pressing on him. He wanted a world where everyone could be themselves, he said, no matter who they love. Ivy, ever the planner, tilted her head. Can we help make that happen? Ethan smiled, a spark igniting. Maybe you can. Unbeknownst to Ethan, the girls took those words to heart. Over the next decade, they would transform James' fortune into a movement that would shake the nation, but not without heartbreak, betrayal, and a fight that tested their bond as sisters. Years passed, and the Carver household became a whirlwind of laughter, chaos, and love. Ethan, now in his late 50s, had traded boardroom suits for dad jeans, his days filled with school runs and soccer games. The Quadruplets grew into teenagers, each carving out her own identity while remaining fiercely loyal to one another. Lily was the athlete, a soccer star with a quick wit. Rose, the artist, painted murals that turned heads at school. Violet, the scholar, devoured books and dreamed of Harvard. Ivy, the leader, organized everything from bake sales to protests for climate change. But beneath their vibrant lives, a shadow loomed. The girls knew about James' will, though Ethan had kept the details vague, wanting them to grow up without the weight of $100 million shaping their choices. He told them only that their Papa James had left them something to make the world better. The girls, now 16, had started asking questions. One rainy afternoon, Ivy found Ethan in James' old study, sorting through papers. Dad, she said, her voice firm, we're ready to know. What did Papa James want us to do? Ethan hesitated. The girls were brilliant, but they were still kids. Yet their eyes, James' eyes, he sometimes thought, held a determination he couldn't ignore. He pulled out the will and read it aloud. The room fell silent as the number sank in. $100 million. Holy crap, Lily blurted, breaking the tension. Rose's eyes sparkled. We could build something amazing. Violet frowned. It's a lot of responsibility. People will come after us. Ivy nodded. Then we plan. We do this right for Papa James. Ethan watched, pride and fear warring in his chest. He'd raised them to be fearless, just as James wanted, but the world wasn't kind to those who dared to dream big, especially not to a family like theirs. The girls threw themselves into brainstorming. Inspired by James' life, they wanted to create a foundation to support LGBTQ youth, particularly those in foster care. They called it the Carver Legacy Foundation, sketching out plans for scholarships, safe houses, and advocacy programs. Ivy took charge, drafting proposals with a precision that stunned Ethan. Violet researched legal structures, while Rose designed a logo, a heart woven with 4 stars, one for each sister. Lily, ever practical, insisted they learn self-defense, sensing the attention their plan would attract. Their first challenge came not from outside, but within. At a family meeting, Violet raised a concern. What if we don't agree on how to use the money? We're sisters, but we're different. Ivy bristled. We'll vote. Majority rules. That's not fair, Rose countered. What if 3 of us outvote one? That's not what Papa James wanted. The argument escalated, voices rising until Lily slammed her fist on the table. Stop. We're doing this for him, not to fight each other. Ethan stepped in, his voice calm but firm. You're right, Lily. James trusted you to work together. If you can't, this won't work. The sisters agreed to a compromise. Each would champion a specific project under the foundation's umbrella, ensuring all their voices were heard. But the tension lingered, a crack in their unity that would widen in time. As news of the Carver Legacy Foundation leaked, the media pounced. Headlines screamed, "Billionaire's adopted daughters to inherit fortune for gay rights crusade." Some praised the girl's vision, but others, conservative pundits, online trolls, attacked. They called the foundation a woke stunt, questioned the girl's motives, and dug into James and Ethan's past, rehashing old scandals about their lavish gay lifestyle. Ethan shielded the girls as best he could, but social media was relentless. Lily came home one day, her face pale, after reading a post calling them spoiled brats playing with daddy's money. Ivy, usually unshakable, cried when a local church group protested outside their school, holding signs that read, "Sinful Legacy." "Dad, why do they hate us?" Rose asked, her voice small. Ethan pulled her close. "They don't hate you. They're scared of change. Your Papa James faced this too, and he never backed down." The girls took strength from that, but the pressure mounted. Then came a lawsuit. A distant cousin of James, a man named Richard Carver, filed a claim against the will, arguing that James was not of sound mind when he bequeathed the fortune to the girls. Richard, a conservative businessman with political ties, claimed the money should go to traditional family values charities. The news hit like a bomb. Ethan hired the best lawyers, but Richard's team was ruthless, painting James as a reckless eccentric and Ethan as an unfit guardian. The girls, once sheltered, were dragged into depositions, their lives dissected in court. One night, after a grueling day of legal battles, Ivy found an old photo of James and Ethan at a pride parade, laughing under a rainbow flag. She showed it to her sisters, her voice fierce. "This is why we're fighting. For them. For us." The sisters rallied, but the lawsuit was only the beginning. Richard's campaign unleashed a wave of threats, letters, emails, even a brick through their window. Ethan doubled security, but the girls refused to hide. They began speaking publicly, sharing their story on podcasts and at rallies. Their courage inspired thousands, but it also painted a bigger target on their backs. As their 18th birthday approached, the day they'd gained control of the fortune, a new threat emerged, one that would test their bond and their mission in ways they never imagined. The Carver Legacy Foundation launched on the girls' 18th birthday, a bittersweet milestone. The upstate New York mansion buzzed with supporters, activists, foster kids, and allies who'd followed the sisters' story. Lily emceed the event, her soccer star confidence shining as she introduced the foundation's mission to provide safe spaces, scholarships, and advocacy for LGBTQ youth in foster care. Rose unveiled a mural depicting James and Ethan, their hands clasped, surrounded by stars. Violet announced the first scholarship recipients, her voice steady despite the cameras. Ivy outlined their plan for safe houses across the country, her eyes blazing with purpose. Ethan watched from the sidelines, his heart full but heavy. The girls had grown into women James would have been proud of, but the threats hadn't stopped. Security guards patrolled the grounds, and Ethan's phone buzzed with alerts about online hate campaigns. Richard Carver's lawsuit had been dismissed, but his allies, powerful, well-funded, and vicious, kept the pressure on. The sisters' unity was their strength, but cracks were showing. Ivy's relentless drive to expand the foundation clashed with Violet's caution about overextending resources. Rose wanted to focus on art therapy programs, while Lily pushed for sports initiatives to reach at-risk kids. Their arguments grew heated, spilling into late-night shouting matches. Ethan mediated, but he felt the strain of holding them together. Then came the betrayal. One morning, Ethan found Violet in tears, staring at her laptop. A tabloid had published an exposé claiming an insider had leaked details about the foundation's finances, alleging mismanagement. The article quoted private conversations, including Violet's doubts about Ivy's leadership. The sisters gathered, stunned, as the story spread like wildfire. "Who did this?" Ivy demanded, her voice sharp. Violet shook her head, sobbing. "I didn't talk to anyone. I swear." Lily crossed her arms. "Then how do they know what you said?" "Those were your exact words, Vi." The accusation hung heavy. Violet, the quiet scholar, had always been the most private, but her journal, where she'd vented her frustrations, was missing. They searched the house, finding in a guest room used by a foundation intern a young man named Caleb who'd seemed trustworthy. Confronted, Caleb admitted he'd been paid by one of Richard's associates to steal it. The sisters were devastated. Ivy fired Caleb on the spot, but the damage was done. Donors pulled back, and the foundation's reputation teetered. Violet withdrew, guilt consuming her, while Ivy doubled down, working 18-hour days to salvage their vision. Rose and Lily tried to bridge the gap, but the trust they'd always taken for granted was fraying. Ethan called a family meeting. "This isn't just about the foundation," he said, his voice raw. "It's about us. James gave you this mission because he believed in you, all of you, together. If you let this tear you apart, Richard wins." The girls nodded, but the wounds were fresh. They agreed to pause public events and focus on rebuilding trust. Ivy and Violet spent hours talking, crying, and forgiving, but the process was slow. Meanwhile, the foundation's work continued quietly. Scholarships funded, safe houses planned, but the sisters knew they needed something bigger to regain momentum. That's when Rose had an idea. "Let's tell our story," she said. "Not through interviews or speeches, but through art. A national campaign, murals, films, exhibits, showing what Papa James' love meant to us." The sisters latched onto the idea, each bringing her strengths. Rose led the creative vision, painting murals in cities from New York to San Francisco. Lily organized community events, drawing crowds of young people who saw themselves in the sisters' story. Violet researched historical LGBTQ figures, weaving their legacies into the campaign. Ivy secured funding, negotiating with donors who'd wavered. The Legacy of Love campaign launched in Chicago, with a mural depicting James and Ethan embracing, surrounded by foster kids holding hands. The image went viral, shared by celebrities and activists. Donations poured in, and the foundation's mission gained new life. But the campaign also reignited the hate. Protests disrupted their events, and a conservative media outlet doxed the sisters, publishing their home address. Ethan moved the family to a secure apartment in Manhattan, but the girls refused to back down. They spoke at rallies, their voices amplified by thousands of supporters. Lily, usually the joker, gave a speech that left the crowd in tears. "Our dads taught us that love is worth fighting for. We're not stopping." But the biggest test was yet to come. One night, Ivy received an anonymous email. "Drop the foundation, where the truth about James Carver comes out." Attached was a grainy photo of James from decades ago, in a compromising situation that could ruin his legacy. The email demanded the sisters disband the foundation or the photo would be leaked. Ivy showed the email to Ethan, her hands shaking. "Dad, what do we do?" Ethan stared at the photo, his heart breaking. He recognized the moment. A private, vulnerable time from their early years, when the world wasn't ready for their love. James had always feared it would resurface. "We tell the truth," Ethan said finally. "James never hid who he was. Neither should we." The sisters agreed, but the decision was agonizing. They knew the fallout could destroy everything they'd built. As they prepared to face the storm, they had no idea how their choice would ripple across the nation. The sisters gathered in their Manhattan apartment, the city skyline glittering through the windows. The anonymous email loomed over them, its threat like a blade held to their family's heart. Ethan sat with them, his face etched with grief but resolute. "If we let them silence us," he said, We're betraying everything James stood for. Ivy, the strategist, took charge. We go public first. We control the narrative. Violet, still shaken from the journal betrayal, hesitated. What if it backfires? People already call us a publicity stunt. Lily gripped her hand. Then we show them we're real. We tell Papa James' story, his love, his fight, his flaws. Rose nodded, sketching a new mural idea, a silhouette of James and Ethan, with the words "Love is fearless" carved beneath. We make it art. We make it ours. The sisters worked through the night, crafting a statement for a press conference. They'd reveal the photo themselves, framing it as a testament to James' courage in a world that tried to shame him. Ethan helped them weave in stories of their life together. The late-night talks, the pride parades, the quiet moments when James taught them to dream big. The press conference was held at the Foundation's headquarters, a modest office in Brooklyn. The room was packed, reporters, supporters, and skeptics, cameras flashing. Ivy stepped to the podium, her voice steady. Our father, James Carver, was a gay man who loved fiercely in a world that didn't always love him back. A photo from his past is being used to threaten us. We're sharing it today, not because we're ashamed, but because we're proud. The screen behind her displayed the grainy image, James, young and defiant, at a clandestine gay club in the 80s. The crowd murmured, but Ivy pressed on. This is who he was, unapologetic, brave, human. He adopted us to show the world that love makes a family. We won't let fear stop us from carrying his legacy forward. Lily, Rose, and Violet joined her, each sharing a memory of James. Lily spoke of his chess lessons, Rose of his encouragement to paint, Violet of his late-night talks about justice. Ethan closed the conference, his voice breaking as he said, "James gave me a life I never thought possible. He gave these girls a future. That's the truth we're fighting for." The response was electric. Social media exploded with Carver legacy, and the Foundation's website crashed from donation traffic. But the backlash was swift. Conservative outlets branded the sisters attention seekers, and Richard Carver resurfaced, calling the press conference a desperate ploy. Protests outside the Foundation's office grew violent, with one throwing a Molotov cocktail that narrowly missed the building. Ethan tightened security, but the sisters refused to hide. They doubled down on the Legacy of Love campaign, traveling to cities hit hardest by anti-LGBTQ laws. In Texas, Lily led a soccer clinic for foster kids, her infectious energy drawing smiles. In Florida, Rose painted a mural at a youth shelter, her art a beacon of hope. Violet spoke at universities, her eloquence silencing critics. Ivy negotiated partnerships with major nonprofits, expanding the Foundation's reach. But the strain was taking its toll. Violet, haunted by the journal leak, struggled with anxiety, retreating into her books. Ivy's relentless pace led to burnout, her temper flaring at small setbacks. Lily and Rose tried to keep the peace, but the sisters' arguments grew sharper. One night, after a heated debate over budget priorities, Violet snapped, "Maybe we're not cut out for this." The words stung. Ivy stormed out, and Ethan found her on the fire escape, staring at the city. "I'm failing him," she whispered. "Papa James believed in US, and I'm messing it up." Ethan sat beside her. "You're not failing. You're human. James knew this would be hard, but he chose you because you're stronger than you know, together." Ivy nodded, wiping her eyes. The sisters reconciled, promising to lean on each other. But the threats escalated. A hacker breached the Foundation's servers, leaking donor information. The FBI traced the attack to a group linked to Richard, but evidence was thin. The sisters pushed forward, opening their first safe house in Chicago, a haven for LGBTQ foster kids. At the ribbon cutting, a crowd of supporters cheered, but a small group of protesters chanted slurs, their voices drowned out by the sisters' resolve. As the Foundation grew, so did its impact. Stories poured in, teens who'd found safety, kids who'd earned scholarships, families inspired to adopt. The sisters began to see the ripple effect of their work, but the cost was steep. Ethan, now in his 60s, worried about their safety, his health fraying under the stress. One evening, Rose found an old letter from James in a box of his things. It was addressed to the girls, written days before his death. "My dearest girls," it read, "you are my heart, my legacy. The world will try to break you, but love is your armor. Whatever comes, choose courage." The letter reignited their fire. They planned a national summit, a gathering of LGBTQ youth, foster care advocates, and allies. It would be their boldest move yet, a declaration that their family's love could change the nation. But as the summit approached, a final challenge loomed, one that would push them to the edge and reveal the true power of their bond. The National Carver Legacy Summit was set for June, Pride Month, in Washington, D.C. The sisters envisioned a celebration of love and resilience, workshops, speeches, and a massive rally on the National Mall. They'd invited foster kids, activists, and lawmakers, aiming to push for federal protections for LGBTQ youth in foster care. The event was their chance to cement James' legacy, but it was also a lightning rod. As the summit neared, threats intensified. The sisters received death threats, and the foundation's office was vandalized with hate-filled graffiti. Ethan hired a private security firm, but the girls insisted on keeping the event public. "If we hide," Lily said, "we're letting them win." The night before the summit, the sisters gathered in their hotel room, nerves fraying. Ivy, poring over schedules, snapped at Rose for suggesting a last-minute art installation. Violet, exhausted, retreated to the corner with a book. Lily tried to lighten the mood with a joke, but it fell flat. Ethan stepped in, holding up James' letter. "Read this again," he said. "This is why we're here." The words steadied them. They spent the night reminiscing about James, his laugh, his stubbornness, his belief in them. By morning, they were ready. The summit opened with a keynote from Ivy, her voice ringing out over a crowd of thousands. "Our father, James Carver, taught us that family isn't just blood, it's love, fought for and won. We're here to fight for every kid who feels alone." The day was a whirlwind. Workshops on mental health, panels on foster care reform, and Rose's art exhibit, which drew tears from attendees. Violet moderated a discussion with lawmakers, her sharp intellect earning applause. Lily led a youth rally, her energy infectious as kids chanted, "Love is our legacy." But as the rally began on the mall, a group of counter-protesters appeared, waving signs and shouting slurs. Security moved to intervene, but the sisters stopped them. Ivy took the microphone, her voice calm but fierce. "You can shout, but you can't stop love. This is for our dads, for us, for every kid who deserves a home." The crowd roared, drowning out the hate. But as Ivy spoke, a man broke through the barrier, rushing the stage with a knife. Lily, closest to her sister, tackled him, her soccer-honed reflexes kicking in. Security swarmed, and the man was arrested, but the sisters were shaken. Ethan pulled them backstage, his face pale. "That's it," he said. "We're canceling the rest." "No," Ivy said, her voice trembling but firm. "We finished this. For Papa James." The sisters returned to the stage, hand in hand, their faces a mix of fear and defiance. Violet spoke next, her voice soft but powerful. "Today, someone tried to scare us, but we're still here. Love doesn't run." The crowd erupted, and the rally continued, stronger than ever. By nightfall, the summit had raised millions for the foundation and sparked a national conversation. Lawmakers pledged to introduce a bill protecting LGBTQ foster kids, and the sisters' story trended worldwide, with Carver legacy becoming a symbol of hope. In the weeks that followed, the sisters reflected on their journey. The man who'd attacked them was linked to Richard's network, though Richard denied involvement. The sisters pressed charges, but more importantly, they kept building. The foundation opened more safe houses, funded scholarships, and partnered with schools to train teachers on inclusivity. Ethan, proud but weary, watched his daughters grow into leaders. One quiet evening, he took them to the lakeside where he and James had shared their first kiss. They scattered James' ashes, a final goodbye. "You did it," Ethan whispered, his voice thick. You changed the world. Lily grinned. We're just getting started. Rose painted a small canvas of the lake, a gift for Ethan. Violet began writing a book about their journey, hoping to inspire others. Ivy planned the foundation's next phase, dreaming of global impact. Their story spread, touching millions. Foster kids found homes, youth found courage, and families saw what love could do. The sisters, once four scared girls, had become a force, proof that a gay millionaire's love and the family he built could shake a nation. Years later, at the Foundation's 10th anniversary, the sisters stood together, now in their 20s, surrounded by thousands whose lives they'd changed. They unveiled a statue of James and Ethan, hands clasped, with an inscription, "Love is our legacy." The crowd cheered, and the sisters smiled, knowing their fathers were watching proud.